In Commander, creatures are a big focal point, which makes sense, other than a select few planeswalkers and the very recent vehicle spacecraft change. Players basically always have at least one creature in their deck. It's pretty rare to see a genuinely creatureless deck. Also, EDH is the new player format, and for most new players, the first way you learn to win the game is by winning with creatures. It's very intuitive. Plus, if you listen to the Commander propaganda, you might think winning with creatures and combat damage is the only way you should win. Not the main focus of this video, but I have a few other ones talking about that. Regardless of where you land on that debate, the fact that that debate exists shows that there are a lot of people who play creatures specifically in EDH. Yet, time and time again, I find players underuse creatures, waste creatures, and lose games because of their creatures. This is especially common with big, powerful creatures, ones with large stats. That's what I want to talk about today. How powerful creatures can cost you games. Computers. Computers! How do they work? Well, you can learn by learning how to code. Using this video's sponsor, boot.dev. This is a website that teaches you how to code. Well, unlike most boring snooze fest methods of teaching, boot.dev teaches you in video game terms. It's literally that meme of, can you explain this, but in Fortnite terms. But in reality, and it actually does work. Video game terms are a useful way to help break down coding problems and understanding how a lot of these coding concepts are actually used. It also keeps you engaged with fun puzzles, and that makes a big difference in learning. If you get bored, you're going to lose interest and you won't learn anything. That's one of the big advantages of boot.dev. Additionally, it is free to create an account and demo the interactive features for all courses, letting you try before you buy. And if you do want to buy, my code Trinket will give you 25% off your entire first year when you buy the annual plan. So if you want to learn how to code in a fun, unique way, head over to boot.dev and use my code TrinketMage for a 25% discount on your annual plan. Thanks to boot.dev for sponsoring the video. Creatures in Commander have a lot of benefits, especially big ones. One of the main benefits is if you want to win with incremental damage over time, then creatures are the easiest and probably best way to do that. Assuming you don't run any big game-ending cards that I'm throwing on screen here, a creature-focused deck is rarely going to take out the whole table in one go. I think winning in a slow, incremental way can be a really fun goal to have in EDH. It's why I personally don't play very many combo decks. No, this doesn't contradict anything I've said in the last video or previous ones. If you want to win in one way, that's fine. Forcing everyone else to do the same, that's a bit different. Another benefit is protecting your life total from other creatures. A simple 1/1 with Death Touch may deter many attacks, or a 0/1 plant can stop a massive amount of non-trampling damage. Both of these little creatures can buy you an extra turn or two. Also, the power on board could be used to pressure your opponents. Getting in early game damage with a big creature can be a big benefit. But that's where the first bit of wasted potential comes in. Playing big creatures, then simply not attacking, is one of the most common mistakes I see in Commander. But I get why they're not doing that, which is why big creatures are kind of paradoxical. In Commander, what do you do when a player is open? Maybe they greeted by ramping, or they casted early game tutors, or they just missed a land drop. Regardless of bad luck, poor deck construction, or being a greedy player, they are open and available for you to attack. Repeatedly beating them down with your 6/5 might be considered a faux pas. In casual Commander, players usually want to lose at roughly the same time. This way, one player is not sitting out and waiting for an hour for the game to end. Now, while I personally have no remorse for the greedy player who wants to ramp to 30 mana for free, but I understand not wanting to knock out your buddy in the early game and have them just wait around. But if you're going to have a slow, incremental damaging game plan, then somebody has to be knocked out first, right? If you wanted everybody to lose all at once, then combos or over-the-top finishers are the way to go. Sometimes I'll see a player cast a big creature, put a ton of power on board, and then pass multiple turns, only to get hit by a Wrath and never actually do any damage. But I get not wanting to make enemies, not wanting to swing in at somebody and then have them retaliate against you. The archenemy problem can occur because of big creatures. An 8/8 on the board is a threat that your opponents can literally see right in front of them. Cards in hand, those are unknowns. You can forget about that. Out of sight, out of mind, right? But that 8/8 on the board, everyone has a target on it. Many times in Commander, the player who becomes the threat first will simply lose by becoming the focus of 3 opponents who haven't spent their removal yet. Many players like to coast early game, playing value cards early and building up synergies. And while value pieces can be threatening early, if your value card also crunches in for damage, people will be more inclined to spend removal on the big creature. Flying under the radar is quite hard to do when you have 12 power on board. This is the kind of weird paradox of creatures in Commander. It is the quote unquote normal win con for most of the format, yet can often knock out a weak player early, which is something you don't usually want to do. It can also put a lot of heat on you early, which is not conducive to winning Commander games. Also, if you know that every player is focused on playing creatures, exploiting that is extremely easy, which creates weird imbalanced games by one player playing a very anti-creature card and everyone else being completely hosed by it. Creatures are so weird in Commander because they are the focal point, but then because it's Commander, they're not utilized to their maximum potential. And I always just found this strange. So here are some ideas or suggestions about how to utilize creatures in a slightly different way that I think is more conducive to being successful within a game of Commander. And by success, I mean having fun, not necessarily winning. I think that a successful Commander game is one where there is a lot of back and forth in terms of who's in the lead. Before I give card suggestions, I want to talk about politics, because in Commander, creature-focused decks that are combat-oriented and aggressive are really politics decks. Mid-game conversations and navigating who to attack to avoid removal and who you should be pressuring for the late game is a whole political song and dance that I think is a lot of fun and one of my favorite parts of Commander. So I encourage you, if you're going to be putting lots of powerful creatures in your deck, to leverage politics as much as you can. My first suggestion is leaning into aggro a little bit. There are a lot of cards that we often think as commanders, which you can just put in the 99 of other lists to make your deck a little bit more aggressive, like Adeline and Brimaz. Or maybe play something like Stigma Lasher and the recently banned Screaming Nemesis, which might come down in price for commander players. Or some green creature that gets bigger over time. There's a bunch of those. And many more. Playing some early game threat type creatures can really shift a commander game. These do a lot of heavy lifting early. Shutting off life gain can make your aggro deck much more viable in the late game portions of commander. And pressuring life totals with various scaling creatures can force out early removal, and that brings removal away from more important creatures like your actual commander maybe. And if aggro isn't your complete strategy, just having some aggressive cards can make your regular mid-range game a little bit more threatening in the late game. And again, drawing out removal early will set you up to have more valuable plays late game as they've already spent their removal. Another thing I don't see too much of is protection spells. I know they're a little bit situational, but in reality, if you just have a threatening commander, you're probably going to play it at some point. And if you're going to ramp into your big scary commander and then not attack because you're in fear of removal, well, these will help you get over that fear. Lastly, defensive creatures. I really like some of these guys that just gum up the board and make attacking into me annoying. Cards like Aether Membrane are really fun. With reach and 5 toughness, random flying tokens are completely useless to swing at me. And anything with 4 power or less is just not worth it because you have to recast it, which is way more annoying than if it just got blocked. Obviously, if the creature has an enters the battlefield effect, this is less effective, but it's a neat card either way. Another favorite of mine is Weathered Sentinels. It has a strange combination of defender and a bunch of offensive keywords, and then it loses defender, gaining indestructible and +3/+3 by attacking someone who attacked me. Getting smacked with a 5/8 indestructible is not something most opponents want, so this little guardian holds down the fort pretty well. These are just some types of things that I don't see too often in Casual Commander that could be a useful addition to your decks. So think about it. Maybe add a couple to your lists today. Creatures occupy a funny space in EDH. They are already the focal point of Magic as a whole, and then that is amplified in Commander. But they do somewhat clash with a few of the classical ideas of the format, which I find interesting. And if you find this interesting, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to my Tier 3 patrons, whose names you see here. If you want to be in the credits, get in the Discord, deck reviews, all sorts of stuff like that, click the link below.